We are live in Montreal's NDG at a polling station as Quebecers cast their ballots tonight. And I'm joined by Idil Issa, co-founder of municipal party Mouvement Montreal. Thank you so much for joining us, Idil.
It's my pleasure, Alyssia.
So the polls show that François Legault's CAQ will win another mandate tonight. What does that mean for Quebecers, considering his government pushed forward Bill 21, the secularism law, and Bill 96, the reform on French language laws?
Well, I think this was a predictable win. I think most people saw this win coming. However, I think it's a toxic win because there's a significant minority that is opposed to the policies of the CAQ, whether it's Bill 96, whether it's Bill 21, and it's an increasingly vocal and well-represented opposition. So whether that's in the form of Balarama Holness's party, whether that's in the form of Colin Standish's party, or even the Liberals as the traditional opposition, there's a growing and significant minority of Quebecers who do not like the policies of the CAQ. So I would say it's more of a toxic win. Yes, they're expected to win, but there's significant opposition within the province.
How would another CAQ win affect minorities and Anglophones, those who feel targeted by Bills 21 and 96?
Well, the English minority in Quebec, it's a reality. It's a long-existing minority, and I think that's a reality that we can't afford to ignore. So I think minorities, whether it's immigrants, whether it's the Anglophones who make up this province, who are a part of this province, I think alienating these minorities is just not a long-term strategy for any governing party. So whether it's the CAQ, the Liberals, or whoever wins tonight. So it's not a good strategy for long-term governing, although it may win the Coalition Avenir Quebec this particular election.
Immigration was a very hot topic on this election campaign, and the CAQ and François Legault have been called out for their comments. And most recently, the incumbent immigration minister, Jean Boulet, was called out because he said that immigrants don't work and don't speak French. What do you think about these comments and the impact that they have?
Well, I think it's concerning that there's such a gap between what's really happening on the ground and what messages are being, shared by certain politicians. So whether that's Boulet, whether that's Legault and his comments that immigration is suicidal, there's just such a wide gap between the reality on the ground and this type of negative messaging. The truth is, it's suicidal if we don't have immigrants. The birth rate in Quebec is low, and of course, governments need increasing population to protect their tax base. So what the Coalition Avenir Quebec is doing in terms of its actual immigration policy, in terms of funding immigration offices in les régions, is at odds with what they're saying to voters right now. So people need to pay close attention to what policies will actually strengthen Quebec in the long term. We need immigrants. We need immigrants who know French, and we're only going to get that through immigration.
Would you say that Quebec is more divided than ever after this election?
I think that's the projection, that's the image that certain politicians want to project in order to win an election, but I think the reality is far different. It's not only Montreal that's increasingly integrated and diverse, it's also les régions. Outside of Montreal, you have a lot more immigrants settling and living in Quebec City, in Trois-Rivières. So that's the reality on the ground. Quebec has immigration. We're getting tens of thousands of immigrants every year, and we need that immigration. So using alienation and these sort of lowest common denominator tactics to win an election is, I think, a tactic the CAQ is using right now. But in terms of long-term governing this province, I think those rifts are going to show up later on.
In a few words, where do you think Quebec is heading after tonight?
I think it's a sea change. I think that the so-called protest parties, whether that's the party of Balarama Holness or Colin Standish, or even the traditional opposition represented by Dominique Anglade, if they don't win, it doesn't mean that it wasn't a significant protest. It's a significant minority of Quebecers who came together, created parties, and ran for office. So it shows that there's dissatisfaction with the policies of the CAQ, and that we can't afford to ignore this opposition going forward. So as I said, even if the Coalition Avenir Quebec wins tonight, which they're projected to do, I think it's a toxic win.
Thank you so much, Idil. Now,